Hello there. Sorry I didn't really think of a funny way to enter the frame this episode. But hello and welcome to an. Jeez. Okay. Bad take right out the gate. Okay. Yeah. No. Can you do this for me? I gotta go. Yeah. No. You'll be fine. I'm not making a YouTube video right now. Yeah. That's done it before. That's fine. Okay. Hello. Hi, my name is Jake, and welcome to another episode of A Camera You May Have Never Heard of. Hello again, and welcome back. How you doing? How you been? If you're new here, thanks for stopping in. It's great to have you. On today's episode, we're talking about a camera that I've been really excited to talk about. It is a new rangefinder in my collection, as you probably saw by the title. But that camera that we're talking about today is the Ricoh 500 rangefinder. This is a fun little camera. It's very interesting. It's got a lot of quirks and features that I've never seen on a rangefinder before. That definitely makes it stand out amongst the crowd. So if you're looking for a rangefinder that is different, that maybe not everyone sees every day, that is kind of a good conversation starter, this might be the camera for you. So let's go ahead. Let's talk about some of the history of this camera, and then let's get into some of the key features, and then we'll go on from there. So let's get into it. The Ricoh 500 was released in the US in 1957 with a price tag of $70. In comparison, around the same time, the Nikon S2 was on the market with a lens with an aperture of f2 for $299. So that's a pretty big price difference, especially considering the Ricoh 500 had an f-stop of 2.8, so not too far off, with a max shutter speed of 1/500th of a second. Had a 45mm lens on it, a 4.5 centimeter. And not only that, this camera has some interesting features. We'll talk about that right now. So the Ricoh 500 was kind of advertised as a sports photography camera. I'll show an advertisement here, and you can see that it has photos of a boxing ring. It's advertised as a sports photography camera. Now, a rangefinder, at least in my experience, is not your go-to for sports photography. But there's a couple features that we'll talk about right now that kind of make it possible for sports. I still wouldn't use it for sports nowadays, obviously, but maybe back in the day, this was a really good option for someone looking to get in the sports photography industry for a good price. So let's take a look at some of those key features. So first, we're going to look at the lens here. On this lens, we're going to see a knob on each side that moves side to side or up and down as you move them. That is your focusing ring, and that is one of the things advertised on that poster there, that it has, I think they call it dual action focus ring, something along the lines of that, something catchy, but it's, it has the option of being able to be focused from both sides. That way you kind of always have an easy way to find that focusing ring. On the lens, you will also notice that there is the aperture ring as well as the shutter speed. That aperture ring is able to move freely by itself, but if you move the shutter speed, it will move the aperture with it. That way, when you set your exposure, if you're shooting, and let's say that you want to change your shutter speed depending on how fast your subject is moving, all you have to do is change your shutter speed, and the camera will move the aperture for you so that your exposure stays the same, which is pretty convenient, especially for sports photographers. So there is that. And then also, if we look at the front of the camera, we'll see that there is going to be this little lever on the bottom of the camera. So we'll move to the bottom of the camera. We're going to see two knobs, one that both sides, they say open and close, as well as this lever. This is how you advance your film, and this is what really stands out on this camera. So opposed to having a lever on the back of the camera, it is on the front bottom, and you wind it to essentially your left when you're holding the camera. That's how you advance your film and actuate your shutter. Really interesting way to advance your film. I've never seen this on a camera before. If you've seen this on a camera before, let me know in the comments down below, because I'm really interested in seeing what other cameras had this, to see if maybe where this drew that inspiration from, or if it's the first one to do it. I've never seen this before. So that is one of the biggest things that I loved about this camera. It's just really interesting. It stands out. It's different. It kind of makes the camera fun to use because it's different, but it's also really hard to not fidget with, because it is very, very satisfying. It has a wonderful sound to it. And even the shutter sounds really nice as well. Some rangefinders have very lackluster shutter sounds, and I really like the way that this one sounds. But let's go ahead. We're going to go out and shoot with this thing. I've already shot a roll of film on this when I went out to California for my vacation. If you saw my Nikon Light Touch video, you saw me talk about the other camera I had that kind of got put on the back burner because of the Nikon Light Touch. This is that camera. This one is manual, so when I was out on vacation, I really just wanted to use the point and shoot because it was easier and more convenient. So this one I only shot one roll with, and I felt like I didn't get enough photos to do it justice to see kind of what kind of image quality we're going to get out of it. So I'm going to go out this weekend. It is Thursday currently. I'm going to head out on Friday and Saturday. We're going to get some photos out and about in downtown to see the kind of image quality we can get out of the Ricoh 500. So bear with me. We'll meet back here in just a couple days, and we'll talk about those images and see what this thing's capable of. Is it still a very viable rangefinder, or are you better off spending your money elsewhere? We're going to find that out, so bear with me, and I'll see you guys there in a bit. Okay, it's been about a week since you just last saw me speak. I've shot another roll with the Ricoh 500. We've got that developed. We're going to take a look at some of those images now, and then we're going to talk about the experience of shooting with the Ricoh 500, and then I want to talk about a little bit more about what I think this camera is capable of. So let's go ahead, let's take a look at these images, and we'll go from there. Okay, so we've got some results. Let's talk about them. So the image quality of this camera, the Ricoh 500, is surprisingly fantastic. I am so happy with this camera. I'm one, happy to have it in my collection, and two, I'm happy to have it for when I want to go out and do photography, because this has such a sharp, fantastic lens on it. Again, I wasn't really expecting a whole lot because I don't know a whole lot about this camera. I've never even owned a Ricoh in the past, or Ricoh, however you pronounce it. I've never owned one, so I wasn't sure what to expect. I've done a little bit of research on this, but I've only seen a few other videos about this camera model. And I was so happy to see the quality of images that came out of this. Now, the images that I shot when I was out in California, in my opinion, are a little bit softer than the ones that I shot this last week. That is because the focusing screen was off just by a little bit. Now, I noticed it when I was shooting before. It wouldn't line up perfectly, but I'm like, it is what it is. It's an old camera. Well, it turns out there's actually adjustment dials or adjustment screws on the inside of the camera. You take these two little screws out, you stick a screwdriver in, you can adjust your focusing screen. I went ahead and did that, and it made a world of difference. So if you're getting a rangefinder like this or this exact model, I couldn't suggest doing that anymore, because it's going to make a huge difference of the sharpness and the proper focus of your image, if you will. Now, I want to show another image here to show the kind of detail that this lens is able to get. This shot right here was from Saturday in the Park. It's this big event, a concert event that they do here in Sioux City every year. This was when Earth, Wind & Fire was playing. I've always wanted to see them, so I was really excited to go down there and get some photographs of them playing. I was up pretty much in the nosebleeds at the top of this grass hill, and I just wanted to get a nice big broad photo of the audience with the sun going down. Again, this was maybe at like 9 o'clock at night. The sun was already down past the horizon, so I was really just working with ambient light. I shot at 2.8 to make sure I was letting in the most light as possible, and shooting at 1/4 of a second. So that's not fast at all. It's really slow. It's only a quarter of a second. So I had to hold that camera extremely still. And I mean, we can zoom in here on some of the details, and there's still so much detail in this image, and I can't be happier with it. I was so surprised. I was like, these images are probably gonna look horrible, but I wanna try it. And they came out amazing. I was so stoked about it. Again, I can't express how much I love this camera anymore. And so I want to talk about that a little bit more of who or what I think this camera is great for. If you are looking for a solid rangefinder that is for, you know, a budget-friendly camera, this thing is under $200 online. I found it anywhere from $80 to $100 on average. I'll put the most recently sold one right here. I found mine for $15 on Mercari. If you get lucky, you might be able to find one. I like to sit there and take my time and dig online and find the best deal possible. I was able to find this one for $15. So you might be able to luck out like I did. You might not. But even if I spent $150 on this camera, I think that is money very well spent. This thing is worth every penny of what they're typically selling for. Again, there's a little different iterations, so yours might be a little bit different. I think there's a couple with a different lens. There's a couple with small different features. But the one that I've got, I can happily say is a fantastic camera to use. Now, if you're looking for a street photography camera, this is also a very viable option in my opinion. I'll show it a little B-roll clip right here, but on the top of the lens is your zone focusing little kind of brackets that shows you where your zone focus is going to be for 2.8, f8, f16, and f22. That is such a cool feature to have on this thing, just right there on the top. Now, granted, focusing on this is already easy with those dual little knobs. Not only that, now if you're doing street photography and you set your aperture to f16, as long as it's within that ballpark of, you know, let's say, hey, I want to be super close to my subjects. I want to be within 5 to 10 feet of them. As long as those numbers are within that f16 bracket, you're going to be in focus. Not only that, this is going to work with really any flash that you want. So for example, I've got my newer flash here. It's a single pin flash. It's a very budget friendly option attached to a kind of universal flash bracket. Again, if you're kind of looking to do like a journalistic style of street photography and you want your flash separate, all you got to do is attach it to here and bam, there you go. I'm not sure if you saw that flash. I'll do it one more time. But there you go. You can do just your standard street photography with this camera with any flash that you want. Granted, using a big bulky one like this and having to wind with the same hand is a little bit of a pain, but you'll get used to it, I'm sure. And especially if you're using a smaller flash, it'll be just fine. Just one more time there. But like I was saying, guys, this camera is fantastic for whatever you want to use it for. If you are simply looking for an easy to use, budget friendly rangefinder that not only has a fantastic build quality, that has great sharpness and great image quality, this should be a very, very viable option that you're looking into. So I am actually going to be going on a cruise here in the next, I think it's actually 7 days away as of right now. In 7 days, I'm going on a cruise with my wife to Alaska. First, we're going to Seattle, where we'll be porting out of. So I'm going to be stopping into a film shop in Seattle, picking up some film, picking up a smaller flash than this big bulky thing. Then we're going to be going off on the cruise. We're stopping in Canada, I think, and then we're going on to Alaska. So I want to do some landscapes, I want to do some nature photography, I want to do some street photography, all within one thing. So I'm planning on bringing the Ricoh 500 to be my primary camera for the entire trip. I'm not going to take phone photos. The only thing I'm going to use my phone for is taking videos for B-roll while on the trip. Everything that I photograph will be on the Ricoh 500. Keep an eye out for that video in the future. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, let me know in the comments down below. Feel free to drop a subscribe or ring the bell notification if you want to know when I post. I'm not super consistent with it, so if you want to know when a new video comes out, feel free to click that button, and YouTube will do its thing and notify you, hopefully. But again, with all that being said, I'm going to knock this table over eventually. I appreciate you guys watching, and I'll see you on the next episode of A Camera You May Have Never Heard of.